Welcome back to an exciting video, and what we're talking about today is the Kemper Profiler and the Fractal FM3/FM3. So there are probably millions of videos on YouTube about the Kemper Profiler and about the Fractal stuff. And I've watched bukus of them. I can't count how many that I have watched between the two. And usually what you get is they'll talk about the unit a little bit, and then you get a lot of sounds, different tones. And I'm going to talk about these units because what we're going to decide on is not so much which one's better, but probably which one's better for you. I am not going to do tones because everybody in the world does tones, and tone is very subjective. Just because I say I like tone A, B, C, D, that doesn't mean you will like any of them. So what we're going to talk about is actually the units themselves, and this is going to be kind of a review of the two, and I know there's reviews out there, but if you've seen any of my guitar reviews, you know I go pretty deep when I do these. So that's how this is going to be. So this is probably going to be a little bit on the long side, just to give you a heads up. And I'm going to split this into two videos. In the first half of the video, or the first half of 1 and 2, we're just going to talk about the units themselves. And, how well they're built, how easy they are to use, the controllers, cabling, pedals, stuff like that. In the second video, we're actually going to look at the software and the differences between programming the two, because the differences there are vast, unbelievably vast, programming these two units. So once again, voice still on the mend. It's just an old, long, crappy voice thing that I got going on right now. Regardless of all that, let's move ahead and get started on this thing. So if you've seen my videos in the past, you know that I've been playing with a Kemper for quite some time. And this is my Kemper sitting here in the rack right here. And Kemper's been a great unit. I've used it for, I can't even count how many shows, because I use mine to play live. And it's been fantastic. It has never let me down, ever let me down. I have recently purchased, I guess I'm probably about a week and a half into this Fractal. I got the FM3. I did not get the FX3, and for a reason, which we'll get into right here in a minute. But the first thing I want to talk about is the construction of these units. Now, I'm not going to pull my Kemper out of the rack, but Lord knows I have fondled it enough to know that it's an incredibly well-built unit, and the thing is seriously built like a tank. It is very solid. I ended up with the rack profiler. Had they had the stage out when I bought this, I may have bought the stage for the simple fact that if you've got to make adjustments while you're on stage, you've got to walk to wherever your unit is to make any type of adjustments, and then go back out to where you normally stand and listen to see how it is. I do like having all my stuff right here in front of me, which is one of the reasons I bought the FM3. If I've got to make adjustments, it's going to be right here at my feet. Now, there are downsides to that, of course. Anything you have in front of you is more apt to get stepped on by somebody beside you. More apt to get stuff spilled on it if you're playing, bars, clubs, venues, whatever have you. So you got to be a little more careful when you have the floor units, because your brain, well, not your brain, but the brain of the unit is literally right in front of you. And if you play a lot of bars, as you know, a lot of bars don't have stages. You're actually playing on the same level that everybody's standing. So you got to be a little more aware when your actual unit that you're using is right here in front of you and not just a controller. So racks and floor units, obviously there's pros and cons to both. On the Kemper side, I do not like that toaster. They have the stage, the rack, and that toaster looking unit. I don't see a use for me for that toaster. A, because these things are not very heavy, and putting that on top of an amp, if you're running it that way, then God forbid that somebody steps on a cable or something and gives that thing a slight little pull, because it'll pull it right off the top of whatever it's sitting on, because it's not like an amp head. It doesn't have enough weight to actually ground itself down on top of something. So the toaster was completely out for me. I had no desire to buy that. The nice thing about rack units is it's protected in your rack. Racked gear is safe gear, and that is very nice. If something does happen and you drop your rack, chances are all the shit inside of your rack is going to be good. So that is the nice thing about rack gear, and I do love rack gear. I've always had some type of rack gear my entire life, but with the way the modelers and the profilers are working now, the units in front of you, I'm kind of liking that, because like I said, if I've got to make a quick adjustment, I can just bend down and do it as you would using a bunch of stomp boxes. If you got to adjust something on your stomp boxes, they're right there in front of you, and I'm kind of digging that. And that had a little bit to do with why I bought the FM3. But anyway, so like I said, the Axe Effects built like a tank. This thing is absolutely brilliant. It is bulletproof. Nothing you have to worry about. It's made out of really good, strong metal, so you don't have to worry about damaging it or it just being feels cheaply made. This thing is just absolutely built like a tank. On the flip side, you have the FM3, which is also built like a freaking tank. This unit here, tell you what, let me turn around, unplug it, grab it, because this one I can't get my hands on. This is the FM3, and if you're watching this, you know what it is, you know how it works. It's not a very big unit, especially when you hold it up to a piece of rack gear. It's considerably smaller, but it does have quite a bit of weight on it. And again, this thing is built like a freaking tank. And honestly, between the two construction-wise, I think I'm gonna have to go with Fractal, because not only is this just solid ass steel they've got on here, they put these rubber boots on these things here. That's pretty cool. I like that. In case you do drop it, chances are, well, not chances are, it's pretty much going to hit that rubber, because it does, stick up over the chassis. So if you do end up dropping this, unless you drop it straight on its back, it is going to hit these rubber guards, and that's actually pretty nice. And you can see the vents right there for the fans. So this thing is also built like a freaking tank. And I don't think you're ever going to have any issues out of the construction of either one of these units. Both these things are incredibly solid, so that is very nice, very nice. Moving on to the controllers. If you're going to use these units, obviously if you're going to use them live, even if I was using these probably for like a studio type thing, I'd probably still have some type of controller, because you don't want to sit there and have to go into menus and turn and push and all that stuff. Playing live, you've got to have a controller. It is essential to have a controller. Here is my Kemper controller. This is also built like a freaking tank, all steel. Got the latch switches on them. Not a very big floorboard, but big enough to do everything you need it to do. The switches on these things are amazing. I have stepped on these things tens of thousands of times, and I've never had an issue out of any of them. This thing just works absolutely flawlessly. And as you can see, you got enough room here for 5 rigs. They call them rigs in a profiler. You've got enough room here for 5 rigs. You've got your tap switch right here, your bank up and down. These are your effects. Very, very cool how they did this. You do have your tuner right here, and you got a looper, which I gotta be honest, I never use a looper. I have never once stepped on that button, not one time. And you got the window right here that'll display what you're playing. And the way this works is they build this, when you're playing live with this, you go into what's called the performance mode. And it's actually pretty damn slick how they did that. And everything will display right here as you step on these buttons. And going into performance mode, you set it up. You literally set up your set list. So in slot 1, let's say the first song you're playing is Still of the Night by Whitesnake. You can go in there and literally name it Still of the Night. And then the way I've got mine set up is this channel here is always my clean channel. And then rhythm, lead, and then anything like a bridge or anything different I have. But one thing you can do, let's say the song has 5 parts for your guitar. And of course you can do this with anything, but this is how they intended the Kemper to work. And let's say you have a clean rhythm, clean lead, clean. You can literally set this up, which is actually brilliant. Set up the name of your song, and then you can set these up, clean, rhythm, clean, lead, clean. And just click down the order that you need them as the song goes on. Then when you switch to the next bank, when you bank this thing up to the next one, let's say the next song is You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC, then you program it in and you put in there what the name of your song is. So the cool thing about it is you've got your set list in here. So you don't need the piece of paper or anything. Because as you scroll up through your songs, you're going to have your sounds for AC/DC. I'm going to use some type of like a Marshall JCM 800 with the gain turned down a little bit, and I'll program all that in there. But for Still the Night Whitesnake, let's say I may use a JVM Marshall or a Boogie or something with a shit ton of gain, and program everything into here. So every time you go to a bank, you have all the sounds for that song in that bank. So that's how they designed this, and it's very, very cool. Going back over to the Fractal stuff, let me unplug all this stuff here. Still working on the Fractal, doing a lot of programming on it. This, Jesus Christ, this is the FC12. This thing is freaking massive, and I do mean massive. In comparison, this is the Profiler. I mean, look at the difference. This is insane. This thing is absolutely huge. And of course, they do make the FC6, which is literally one half of this. But I opted for the FC12 because you know what? I just like to have more shit to push on the stage. I can never have too many buttons. And I never know what I might end up doing to actually need more switches. Right now, do I need 12 switches on this unit? No, I do not. But I guarantee you at one point, Mass is going to figure out what to do with these 12 switches. So to me, it's become a personal challenge. Has the same type of switching system on it, these latch switches. Very durable. Again, this thing's built like a freaking tank, all steel. Got these big rubber boots on the end, which I love. Absolutely love that. I just think that is brilliant the way they did that. And it's pretty cool. It's a different system. It's not performance like they have in the Kemper, which I just, right off the top, I'm going to tell you now, I think the Kemper switching system, the way they've got it set up for playing live, I just think it's better. It's simply a better system. Fractals can actually get very confusing, very strange, and very weird. And I'm not exactly sure why they did it the way they did it, because there's a million ways that I would have done it besides the way they did it. Now, it does work. But it definitely takes a minute to get used to. If you've played a Kemper or the Helix or anything like that, this one is just balls out weird and strange the way they got this set up. But we'll go over that more in a minute. But when you turn this on, it'll display what's going on right here. But each one of these also has a display on it. So it'll display whatever the title of your channel is. That's not a good word to use on for this, a channel. The title of your preset. Now, you can do it the same way. You can go in and you can set it up in a performance type mode to where you can put your set list in here with all your different songs. But that is not how they designed this. I'll get more into that on the second part of the video. The way they did this is just, to me, is just very, very strange. And it is absolutely zero intuitive. To where on the flip side of the Kemper, it's very intuitive. This is zero. When I set up the Kemper, within a day, I pretty much had that damn Kemper figured out. I'm 10, 11 days into this, and I haven't even scratched the surface. And I can't tell you how much I have read, how many videos I've watched. Their manual is really not that great to get into detailed type of stuff. And I'll show you that on part 2, because in the software, there's all kinds of shit hidden in there that you'll just never find unless you just go in there and start randomly clicking shit. But on the flip side, this is probably one of the nicest controllers I have ever used in my life. This thing is absolutely freaking amazing. What I do love about this controller specifically is on the back, they have XLR ports right here. This is called their Fast Link. That is what connects it to the main unit. And it is powered by there, and that's how it talks. That is brilliant because XLRs are pretty damn stable cords. And I mean, how many XLRs do you have? If you're at a show and somebody comes up, your singer's running around and absolutely steps on it and breaks your cable, chances are you've got XLRs laying all over the damn stage or in a bag or something. The downside to the Kemper on this unit here is it takes a Cat5 type. This I do not like. Here is the Cat5 cable that comes with the Kemper. All right, now it does have this specifically built in. This part right here goes into the floorboard, so it's a lot more secure than just running the straight Cat5. This is what goes into the back of the Kemper. The problem I have with this is these things just aren't that sturdy. They will wear out, the pins will bend, and they're kind of easy to break. The cables, I wrap this up completely round, and you can see what it looks like. It's just a mess. Because that's just how Cat5 is. So I hate Cat5 cables. The other shitty thing is if something goes wrong when you're at a show and your cable goes bad, chances are you don't have a Cat5 cable floating around somewhere. So if you got a Kemper, I highly recommend either buying another one of these from Kemper or at least getting a 20-foot Cat5 cable. And any Cat5 cable will work in this. But it won't have this specific tip. You'll just have this exposed tip that'll be plugged in right here. So not the best setup in my world. Not a big fan of how they did that. But it works, and it works damn well. It's a good unit. All right, so let's get to the face of these units. On the Kemper itself, I'm just going to show a picture here, because like I said, I did not want to pull mine out of my rack. So if you look at the front of this, you can see it has pretty much everything you need. And actually, the design and the layout of this thing is absolutely brilliant. They laid this out in a very, very logical way, and that I love. To where when you go to the Axe effects, it is so illogical the way that it's worked out, the fractal stuff. It just doesn't make sense. And it's like they made it complicated on the fractal for the sake of making it complicated. To where when you jump onto a profiler, it's the easiest thing in the world to use. It is insanely easy to use a profiler. And if you look at the picture here, if you see the top where it says the buttons that say A, B, C, D, and then you have amplifier, EQ, and your cabinet, then you have X, modulation, delay, and reverb. Well, if you look at both ends of that, all the way to the left you have your input. All the way to the right you have your output. That is absolutely brilliant to me. That they have set this up in the signal chains flow. So starting at your input, the ABCD is everything pre. So that is where you can assign your stomp boxes out of the unit and put them in front of amp, which is just brilliant because it's easy to understand. Then when you come out of D, you move into your amplifier, you pass through an EQ, of course, and then you move into your cab. And then after your cab, you have the X, which is just an open block you can put anything into. Your modulation, delay, and you have your reverb. And all these are post effects, as if you're running them through an effects loop on the back of an amp. This is absolutely freaking brilliant. They laid this out so a 5-year-old could understand it. You have your input, and then everything runs through a straight chain to your output. It's a no-brainer. You can't screw up the order of this stuff. Now, also on the front, you see a bunch of knobs and stuff. You'll see your noise gate knob that you can turn your noise gate up and down. And the cool thing about it, on the rack, they actually added in some knobs for the delay and for the reverb. So you can literally just walk back and adjust them from the front panel and not have to go into the menus to adjust anything. You can just go up and start turning, because as the place fills up, the crowd changes, the size of the venue. When you're playing a venue with 50 people, your reverb and delay may sound huge. But when you're playing a venue with 500 people, all of a sudden your reverb and delay may not be that huge anymore. So you can just walk over in the front and just turn them up. It is absolutely fantastic. Then, of course, the knobs below the screen, that is when you're actually looking at the amp. Those knobs will come up and it'll be like the knobs on an amp. You'll have your bass, your mid, your high, and usually a presence will be assigned there. And then, of course, you have a few buttons to the left where you can store your rigs. You can get into your system. You have your undo button, stuff like that. On the right side where you see the exit button, you can go over there and turn things off and on through the off and on switch. You can lock things through the lock switch, which is pretty straightforward. You want to lock it, push the damn lock button. Then, of course, you have your copy and paste function. So that way, if you set up a rig in bank 2, but you decided you need that same rig in bank 16, you can literally go in there, copy the rig, go up to 16, and hit paste. You're done. And it'll put it in the slot that you've got it assigned to. So it's crazy easy to use this thing. You do have a guitar input on the rack on the front and one in the back. I use the one in the back, of course, because I got a little bitty cable with the elbows that connects down to my Shure wireless. So I don't run anything out of the front of this unit here. So like I said, it's an absolutely brilliant way they've set this up. Moving on to the back side of this unit. Now in the back you have the standard fare, and they pretty much got everything that you need back here. Obviously you have your XLR mains left and right, and you also have 1/4" mains left and right. And of course, you have a ground lift, and the ground lift on these things works beautifully because I've used it in multiple places. You have your monitor output, and that is a 1/4" out to come to your FR that you're using on stage. And the nice thing is it has its own global EQ, so you can EQ that separate from your front of house, because that has its own global EQ also, because your FR is never going to sound like your mains. It's never going to sound that. And at least that way you can go in there and try to EQ the two as close as you can, so you get a pretty consistent sound around the stage. You have a direct output, which is also a send. You have a return input, and you have an XLR, of course, and then you have a 1/4". You have your SPDIF in and out. You have a MIDI in, out, and through. And you got a place for 2 pedals on the back of this, so you can run 2 expression pedals on the back. And of course, where it says network, that's where your Cat5 goes. And then you have a USB port. So the back of this has pretty much everything you need to play live. And the same way on the Fractal stuff. Now the FX3 pretty much has the same ins and outs as the Profiler does. So between those 2 units, you're going to have pretty much the same flexibility and capability between the 2 units. It does change a little bit, however, on the FM3. Now the front panel of this is pretty similar to the Axe effects, and this is where you do all your editing and stuff as opposed to the front panel on the Kemper. But this does give up a little bit of stuff in the back here, and I'm going to show you a picture, of course, because it's just too hard to try to do it this way. If you look at the back of the unit, you'll see that you have a place for headphones, and you got your input 1 for your guitar. You have your out mains, and these go out to your mains, of course. You have your effects return left and right, and your effects send left and right. You do have pedal 1 and 2, and this is to add 2 expression pedals. Your fast link, 2 USBs. You have a MIDI in and a MIDI out through that is shared. Then you also have a SPDIF out. Now the FX send, this unit here, when they first built this, obviously, you know, there was no outputs for your FR. So the FX send doubles as the outputs for your FR. And what you do is you go into the system and you tell this to basically mirror output 1, and it turns your FX sends into outputs, and that gives you 2 1/4" outputs. So you can run a left and a right if you're running 2 FRs on stage. But the problem they had is they only had 1 global EQ. So no matter how you set your sounds up, you're going to have to EQ to your mains, because every room is going to sound different. So these units put global EQs in there. Some places you play are going to be very bright sounding, some places will be very dark sounding. So you can go to your global EQ and you can make adjustments across the entire unit that will affect every sound in the unit. Well, a lot of people complained about that, and luckily they got on the ball. When they put out the Cygnus patch for this, they actually also brought out a secondary global EQ, so you can EQ your FRs separate from FOH, which is brilliant because you cannot do it otherwise. Because if you're EQing for your front of house, chances are your FRs are going to sound like shit. If you're EQing for your FRs, your front of house is going to sound like shit. They have to have their own separate EQs. So Fractal did step up and do that. So that was actually pretty cool. Quick note on these 2 here. Ow, 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 ow. From what I can tell you, from what little bit experience I've had with the Fractal, the tech support at Kemper is brilliant. You got a problem, you fire them off an email. It will take 1 day, but you will get an email back the next day. And of course, they'll ask you a bazillion questions, make sure all your stuff is registered on the website. And they're actually really good at helping you troubleshoot problems. And they get back to you. If you send it on a Monday, they'll get back to you on Tuesday. You reply on Tuesday, they'll get back to you on Wednesday. They're pretty good. So I got to give their tech department and their support 2 thumbs up, because they've done a fantastic job. And on the flip side, since I've had this, I've had a lot of questions about the Fractal, because it's just fucking complicated to use. Their tech support is also absolutely brilliant. You fire them off a question, a lot of times you get a reply back that day. They do have a number you can call. They would prefer rather work by email, but I have actually called them twice, and they have picked up the phone, believe it or not, and have answered my questions. That to me was amazing. That I actually got somebody on a phone to that I could talk to about certain things. But fire off emails and they get back to you a lot of times that day. If not, it'll be the next day. And so tech support on both sides, nothing to worry about. Tech support's going to be fantastic with both of these guys. If you have any problems, they're easy to get in touch with. Fire them off an email. Chances are you'll hear back that day or the next day. So that is not an issue whatsoever. Okay, I want to talk more about the controllers because to me this is one of the most important aspects. The units are good. We already know that. Kemper and Fractal, they're the two big fish in the pond. Everybody else is playing catch up. I actually had a Helix. I had one for 28 days and I ended up sending it back. I just could not get, and I am a gearhead and I am a serious tweaker. No matter how I adjusted that freaking Helix, I just could not get that little bit of that digital grind out of it. And that's always been my problem with Line 6 since the day they started. I don't care how much you clean it up, I can still hear that digital in it. As opposed to the Kemper, which sounds probably 99% of a real amp. It is insane how good this thing sounds, if not 100%. From what little time I've had the Fractal, I've gotten a couple amazing, amazing tones out of it. Now granted, I've spent 10 days on 2 tones, literally. On the Kemper, I spend about an hour on a tone. But besides the units, this is what you're working with on the stage. So this to me is very, very important, is the control of the unit. The Kemper is brilliant in its simplicity. And this is what I love about the Kemper. It is just stupid. If you can use an amp, you can use a Kemper. It's literally that straightforward. And you can see here, this front display will display the name of what is going on, but it'll also show you every single effect that is engaged onto this amp. Anything that is light gray means the effect is disengaged. Anything dark gray means the effect is engaged. And that is brilliant. And here you can see the banks here, the switches. There's virtually no lag between the two. You can see it, it'll bank across and it lights up the little green light. Here's your bank up and down. And actually we're going to bank down for this and we're going to go to bank sound number 2. And you can see where I've got effects turned on here. And my reverb is just on. I don't have it programmed into the board, but my delay is this green light. The delays are always green. And you can see here, now my delay is off. And when I step on it and turn it on, that light will light back up, the white light, to let me know that my delay is active. And the same thing here with this course. This course comes up, I've got it set to be off initial boot up. And when I click this, it'll turn my course on. And this is a phaser right here. And it's the same way. I've got it set off and on. So right now, this tells me it's purple, that I got a phaser in the slot. This tells me I have a delay in a slot. I've got a chorus in the slot. And on this one here, what have I got here? Oh, on this one right here, I've actually got a pitch right here. And it is turned off. But you can see I've assigned 2 effects on it. It's got 2 lights. And I've got them tied together, so when I turn these on, both lights will light up telling me that both of these units are turning on at the same time. I love that. You can assign 2 effects to each one of these buttons and turn them off and on together. Another really cool thing that I love about the control of this, and this is just brilliant in my opinion, is you can see here I'm on my rhythm channel. This is my 80s rock channel. Not my 80s metal channel, this is my rock channel. And we have a couple of songs that when I'm playing, I have to reach down and turn my volume knob down. And a couple of the songs, I'm coming off and I gotta grab that volume knob quick without breaking time to get my sound to drop down and clean up the amp a little bit for what we're doing. Well, it was just too inconsistent. You know, sometimes you grab it, you turn it down too much, you don't turn down enough. Piss on that. I'm just gonna do it through my controller. So what happens here is I've got my gain, which you can see here. It's sitting at about 2 o'clock. So what I did is I assigned this pedal, which is crazy easy to do in a Kemper. When I step on this, see this light? It switches to the top light. Now look at my gain. I don't know if you can see it through the camera, but I've lost 50% of my gain. And if you watch right over here, you should be able to see this. When I step on this again, you'll see my gain will ramp back up. See how it pops back up? And you can set the time. You can have it cascade over a second or 2 seconds. So it'll slowly come on, which in my case, because the amount of change I got to make quickly, mine's instant. And you can see the gain switching off and on without having to leave the channel and do anything weird. And that way I can just bypass having to reach down and grab my volume knob really quick. That is absolutely fantastic. Each one of these buttons has a secondary feature on it, which is incredibly easy to set up. And I'll go over all that stuff more later. I'm just talking about the features of the pedal boards right now. So, brilliant pedal board, works like a freaking champ. You do have 4 slots in the back for 4 expression pedals. So you can run a total of 6 off of this thing. I run 2. I have 3. I've never used 3 on the Profiler. I always use 2 on the Fractal. I don't know yet. So it's great. And like I said, it is brainlessly easy to use. All your information is right here. Like I said, it shows me what effects at the top are engaged, disengaged, the name of this channel, and then it shows me where I'm at in my channel settings. Right here, it has my jazz clean for part 1. This is my 80s rock tone. This is my 80s lead, and my 80s rock is the one that is highlighted. So it lets me know that I'm on it there. Then, of course, I can see where I'm at here because I always set mine up the same way. So very, very cool. Absolutely fantastic unit. Moving on. Yes, this is a long-ass video, so be prepared. All right, gotta be close because I got this plugged in. All right, this is the FM3 right here. And of course, here's the screen on the FM3. Now, you can just run a live show strictly from this. These buttons are multifunction buttons, and they do multitudes of things depending on how you step on them. So realistically, you could run an entire show from just this. I wouldn't because I think you're a little too limited with just the 3 buttons, even though they'll do everything you need it to do. It's just not enough for me. I need more buttons than just 3. But they did set this up for as complicated as their setup is. They actually set this up pretty cool so you can get in and out of menus pretty quick. And here is my 80s rock that I've got set up. Here's my recto mode for the messes that I'm working on. And here is one that I downloaded, I just pulled it out of the presets and stuck it in here just so you can see what's going on here. So if I want to go to my 80s rock channel, I click that, and that'll take me to my 80s rock channel. But I'm still stuck in my 80s rock channel. I can't get to any of my presets. So, wrong buttons. So, you press and hold this middle button, and you see the ring will turn red, and now it takes me into scenes. So, if I click that again, now I've got my clean, my lead, and I've got my rhythm and my lead. All right, that's great. But what if I need 4 sounds for this? Well, now I've got to switch into more, and I got to keep going in, keep going in, keep going in. Personally, I'm not a fan of that, just because of the way they've got this thing set up. So, on that note, let me show you what the FC12 will do. All right, here is this behemoth FC12. Dude, this is the coolest fucking controller I've ever used in my life. It's worth buying it just so you can look at it. Because, come on, dude, it's fucking awesome. But what's really, really cool about this, so you use these 2 units in conjunction when you have the when you have the FM3, which is actually really nice. And this is one of the reasons why I did buy this unit as opposed to the Axe-Fx. Now, the good thing about the Axe-Fx is you do have more CPU, quite a bit more CPU. I have maxed out the CPU on this FM3. There are workarounds and there are cheats. Instead of putting in a noise gate block, try to use the noise gate out of the input 1. Works just as well. And instead of adding an overdrive pedal, unless you're trying to do something incredibly specific, the amp model, the amp block actually has a boost built into it. And you can use the boost, and then it gives you a set of pedals to use from to help keep down the CPU. So I have found a workaround just about for everything that I've tried to do. And then if it just gets to be too much, I'll just try to rebuild something in a whole different patch. Or sometimes you may have to make a little bit of compromise here or there. But we're looking at a $1,200 difference also for the Axe-Fx3 with this unit and the pedal as opposed to this. And like I said, I like having all my controls and all my stuff in front of me. I dig that personally. For gigging, I think the FM3 is a little better because, let's be honest, how many blocks do you need? How many delays and how many reverbs do you need to run in one channel line? Not that damn many. So let's be realistic about this. But you can CPU it out. I have hit it a couple of times, just screwing around. But as you can see here, this thing is just absolutely freaking brilliant. It's just huge. And what it here in the top, it tells you what you're looking at here. Like when I click on it now, it says I'm in my rhythm channel. And it'll give me at the very top of it, it says 80s rock because it's my 80s rock preset. Then the line below it will tell you what channel you're on. That's pretty cool. So going back to your FC3, when mine boots up, it'll boot up on its 3 switches and show me 3 of my presets. And then it'll show me, preset 1, 2, and 3. So I can get to any of those 3 pretty quick right off the bat. So, but after that, I do have to use the secondary function to put it into a bank mode. So, and then when I switch it and I go +1, it'll show that my next 3 presets, as opposed to the Kemper that you can just keep filing straight through over and over and over. Bank up, there's your stuff. Bank up, there's your stuff. Bank up, there's your stuff. This requires an extra step. Now, there may be a workaround for that, and I'm sure there is that I just haven't gotten into yet because I've been so busy fiddling with it. I'm sure that there should be a way for me just to bank up to the next sound, but I haven't figured that one out yet because it's kind of complicated. But this is what I love about the FC12. If you look here at all the different colors I have got set up on this, and this is freaking brilliant because you can adjust the color of the LEDs. Why is that important to me? Well, I kind of run everything pretty much the same. My cleans are always here in channel 1. My rhythms are always in channel 2. My leads are always in channel 3. Then if I have like a bridge or something specific, like in Still of the Night, I have 5 different sounds set up for the one song because I've got 5 different things I got to use to play Still of the Night, to play all the parts. So, but what I like about this, as you can see, my clean now is lit up, so it's a bright green. When I come off of it, it'll dim, and then the next channel will go bright. Well, I set my cleans to green, my rhythms to blue, and my leads to red. Now, these are all leads. I just don't have these programmed in yet. And I love that because no matter where I'm at on the stage, and Lord knows I've been playing songs and think I've came off my lead channel and walk away from my rig to start playing, and I'm still on my lead channel playing rhythm. And then until I walk out there and think, oh shit, that's not right. Then I got to go back and change it. With this, no matter where I'm at on the stage, I can just look across and see which light is lit up. And if I'm looking at a bright blue, I know I'm on my rhythm channel. If I'm looking at a bright red, I know it's on my lead channel. If I'm looking at a bright green, I know I'm on my clean channel. Of course, you can hear that. But if you got 5 or 6 cleans, you might need to know which one you're on. And clean 1 is always my bass clean sound for that particular song. So I set it up that way specifically. This till is my tuner. And the way I've got this set up is when I step on my tuner, it mutes the board. So there's no sound coming out when I go to my tuner. The tuner comes up here, but it also comes up with a much nicer tuner on the FM3. That I do love because it's all sitting right in front of me. And this is where I've been messing around with the banks, banking these things up and down, or just basically I've been using these two just to see how to move through the scenes. And that's going to be in the next video because it's just complicated as shit. But this thing is absolutely freaking brilliant. This controller is. I love the controller. And I got to tell you, dude, if there was a way to MIDI this controller, this is what I would be using on my on my Kemper. If this had a MIDI input on it, this is all I would use. This is all I would use. Of course, I could. If I end up keeping my Kemper, I don't know yet, because I'm always changing gear. I can MIDI from the FM3 to the Kemper, and I can control the Kemper that way, and then program this pedal for specific Kemper sounds. I can do that through MIDI that way. So, and here, you have some switches here. You have 1/4-inch inputs for switches, and you also got places for 4 pedals. So I can run 4 pedals here, 2 pedals here to give me a total of 6. On the Kemper, I can run 4 pedals on the controller, and then 2 pedals in the back to give me a total of 6. I don't need 6 pedals. I don't ever need 6 pedals. So let's drop this off. I know it's a long video. Look at the table of contents, move to where you need to move to. So, all right, here's an expression pedal. Yes, I'm going over a lot of shit. Here's an expression pedal. Now, this is just a cheap old Moog pedal. And this is what I've been using for my Kemper forever, because I actually had one of these before I had the Kemper. And I thought, well, it should work. You got the dual ringed cable, which you must have on these. You must have the dual ring cables for any of these things to work. $40 works pretty good. I mean, I have no complaints out of it. It does have like this Q control right here. So if I got it all the way forward, it's a full sweep. If I've got it like in the middle, even though you hit it full, you're only kind of moving like through a half sweep. So you want to keep that set to full all the time. Made out of plastic. Been using it for a while. I haven't had any issues out of them. Actually, a couple of years I've been using these. Haven't had any issues out of them. They're pretty good pedals. And this is what I use for my Kemper. When I got the Fractal, put that off. I went ahead and bought the package that came with their pedal. And this thing, once again, there we go. Hands of a ninja. This thing, once again, is built like a freaking tank. It is all steel. It is just massive. It is huge. Look at this compared to my Moog pedals. Look at the difference in the size of this thing. It's gigantic. And you're definitely not going to get your damn foot to slip. It does have some good grip tape on it. Very smooth here. And it works like a really good volume pedal, the old wah. It's got the arm in there and the wheel that rotates. And this thing is just built like a freaking tank, man. And then, of course, you got a volume in and out, and you have your expression. And once again, this is the actual cable. It's a dual ring cable. You must have Fractal Audio Systems. It says it on the damn cable. You must have the dual ring cables for these things to work inside of these units. So if you have one of these and you are buying a pedal and your shit's not working off of a 1/4 inch, you got the wrong 1/4 inch. So those are the pedals. Now you can set up the pedals to do a multitude of things. Obviously you can set them up as a volume. You can set them up as a wah. You can set them up for your pitch bender. On the Fractal, you can pretty much set up your pedal to do almost anything. You can increase distortion, decrease distortion, increase delay, increase reverb. So, I mean, on the Kemper, yeah. So I'm pretty sure you can do all the same shit on the Fractal. I just haven't gotten that far into it yet, but pretty sure you can do that because that's pretty much basic stuff nowadays. All right, so now we are going to come down to the last part of this first video. Ease of use. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the easiest to use, 10 being the hardest to use, I'm going to give Kemper a 1 because if you can use an amp and you understand signal flow, you can use a Kemper. From left to right, it follows a signal chain. Input, everything pre, amp section, everything post, output. Plain and simple. And when you go into the Kemper software, it's lined up the same way. Input, everything in between, output. Building rigs in Kemper is insanely easy. If you can use an amp, you can use a Kemper. If you are not a tweaker, you will like the Kemper. The nice thing about the Kemper is you're actually getting your rigs are actually profiles of real amps. And it works flawlessly. And they sound amazing. They sound absolutely amazing. The downside is if you listen to 100 rigs, 99 of them are going to suck. Because the thing about a profile is you not only do you need to know how to set an amp, you need to know how to mic an amp. And when you go to the rig exchange, and there's thousands of rigs up there, you will learn very quick that 99% of those people have no idea how to mic an amp because they sound like dog shit. I have downloaded hundreds of those patches and they have been terrible. Everyone has been terrible. There are some, I think Deadlight, they've actually done some pretty badass rigs. And a lot of the stuff I use is by Deadlight. They just do a fantastic job. The Michael Britt stuff that everybody loves, personally, I do not like it. Everything that he sets up is very, very MIDI sounding. A lot of mids. The amp models are very boxy. And I know everybody just goo-goos over the Michael Britt profiles. And dude, Michael Britt, he's a badass. I'm not dogging him whatsoever, but I don't like his profiles. For the type of music I play, they simply do not work. So that is the caveat. You have to find rigs that work for what you're trying to play. And there's thousands. And you get to a point where you're so damn tired of looking through the rig exchange, you start looking to buy them. So now you're anywhere from $10 to $150 to buy rig packs, depending on what you're after. Most sites will let you hear the rig on the front end, but you have to keep in mind, the rig you're hearing is their rig, the way they've got it profiled, played through their guitar, and if they're doing something through a Les Paul, it is not going to sound the same on your Fender Strat. So you have to keep all that in mind when you're listening to it. Programming the Kemper, you can do everything you need to do from the front control right here. It is insanely easy to program. You can go in to your list. When you go to your performance, you click the button, you start turning the wheel, and you'll go into your menu of all your different rigs. Scroll down till you find the rig you like. Mine's set to auto load. As soon as I stop, boop, it loads the rig in. When it loads in a rig, it loads in the amp and the cabinet at the same time. So once that's loaded in, at that point, slight EQ changes, because these are, when you download a rig, they're all going to be at 0. All your EQs are all going to be at 12 o'clock. Because you got to remember, everything's been pre-EQ'd and mic'd on the front end. So if it's a really, really, really good profile, you shouldn't have to EQ it at all. But at that point, maybe 1 or 2 on the EQ. Small differences on this EQ makes massive changes. And then set up your pedals pre, set up your pedals post, however you want to set up, dial them in, you're done. Finished. And like I said, and assigning stuff to the pedal is just crazy easy. If you want to assign an effect in this button slot right here, all you do is go to the front of your Kemper, find the effect you want, A, B, C, D, or modulation, whichever one you want, press it, click the button, programmed, done. It is that easy. They spend as much time on making this thing sound amazing. They spent an equally amount of time on making this thing user-friendly. In that, I give them 2 thumbs up. They did an amazing job on making this thing user-friendly. The layout is easy. Setting up tones, if you can use a guitar amp, you can use a Kemper. If you can use your analog pedals, you can use a Kemper. It's truly that straightforward. Now, there are some things you'll have to go into when you start getting into some very, very specific type things. You may have to go into the menu 1 or 2 pages. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. When you go to set up your Fractal, get some bourbon. Make sure you eat beforehand, because your ass is going to be sitting there for who knows how long trying to figure everything out, especially on the front end. Now, I've gotten much better at it, but there are so many parameters on a Fractal. When you go to the Fractal exchange, the stuff that comes with the Fractal, the stock stuff, kind of like the Kemper, the bulk of it's shit. There's a couple of them in there that are pretty good out of the box, but you still got to go in there and tweak the hell out of them. On the rig exchange, the axe exchange, whatever the hell they call it, everything I've downloaded so far sounds like shit. There's nowhere near as many FM3 rigs put up as there is Axe FX 3 rigs. And you have to remember, when you're bringing down Axe FX, some of these people just go stupid and they put 12 blocks in on the damn thing. So as soon as you download it, boom, you CPU the hell out of your FM3. So now you got to go in and just pull all the shit out you don't need if you like the sound, because you don't need all that crap in there. A lot of tweaking, a lot of damn tweaking, even on the amp itself. And on the second part of this video, we're going to cover some of that, how these units actually work, and then we're going to explain how the presets actually work in these, because that's actually the complicated part. When I first got the Fractal, I had a hell of a time figuring out, okay, what the fuck, man? I've got presets, blocks, and scenes. What the hell? On the Kemper, I have banks and channels. Bank 1, channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bank 2, channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bank 3, channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not on the Fractal. Preset 1, 4 channels, 8 scenes. in preset 1. You go to preset 2, you got 4 different channels and 8 more scenes you got to deal with. So that just really absolutely threw me through a loop. Why the hell have I got 8 scenes? Why have I got 8 scenes? I don't need 8 scenes for anything. But what the hell are these channels for? If I got 8 scenes for 8 sounds, what the hell have I got all these channels for? And if I got all these channels, then what the hell do I need all these presets? Very strange how they set this up. So, on the ease of use of that, and I'm not talking bad about Fractal. And you know what? I bought this unit. They did not give me this. You know I am. I say the absolute truth no matter what. They do not get a favorable review from me whatsoever because I buy all the stuff. And I gotta be honest, even if they send it to me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be brutally honest about everything that I do. Because I don't want somebody to buy something that I recommend and then they say, dude, you said A, B, C, D, and it's the exact opposite. I'll never do that. And shit, I have sold more guitars for Ibanez than fucking Guitar Center has off my reviews. I can't tell you how many Ibanez guitars I've sold off those 3 Ibanez reviews I've done. Regardless of that, thumbs up, ease of use on this and how they designed it. On the Fractal, 2 thumbs down. They made this overtly complicated. They made nothing easy on this. There's at no point can you drag and drop and just run off your merry ass way and go gig. On the Kemper, you can literally pull in a rig that you like, drop in a delay and a reverb, make no adjustments, and go play a show. On this, ain't gonna happen. No matter what you drop in, your ass is going to tweak. And of course, you know, front-end tweakings of delays and reverbs, not that hard. But they've made every menu so deep. You can go pages into pages into pages setting these things up. And when we get to part 2, we're going to go into that a little deeper. So, that, like I said, this is part 1. There will be a second part to follow. I know this is a lot of stuff, a lot of information. I've seen a lot of videos on these 2 units. I've seen a lot of comparisons between these 2 units. But they're always comparing the sounds. That's great. Okay, we already know they sound good. They should for what the fuck you pay for these things. Oh man, the mouth today. I gotta put a lot of beeps in. As it sits right now, I got $2,400 in my Kemper. As it sits right now, I got $1,700 in my Fractal. If I had bought the Axe Effects, I would have had, I think, 32 in it, if I'm not mistaken. So I want the FM3, but I also like this shit in the floor. More on that later. So they sound good. We already know they sound good. But everybody does that kind of comparison. I don't want to do that kind of comparison. I want to do the nuts and bolts. How good is it? How easy is it to use? What's the cool features about it? What's the shitty features? So that's what this video is about. There's going to be no tones, no tones, no tones, no tones. So I hope you like what you saw so far, and I hope it's made something at least a little easier for you to say, okay, I like what I'm hearing so far about the Kemper or about the Fractal. The second part 2, we'll go a little deeper. I didn't want to do it in this video because it's probably going to be another 30 minutes into it. And this video is just long enough already as it is, just trying to cover this. And there's a lot of shit I left out just because of time. I could have gone much deeper on both units. But on that note, if you have any questions, put it down in the questions section. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I haven't said that in forever. If you have any comments, put it in the comments section. If you have any questions, put it down in the comments section. Please subscribe to my channel and check out my Patreon page, which I'm still working on. I'm moving very slow on my Patreon page. Incredibly slow on my Patreon page. But check out everything else. Please subscribe. Yes, I know. I keep saying I got to say this stuff earlier in my videos, and I always say it at the freaking end. I'd probably get a lot more subscribers if I said this shit early, because most people do not stay till the end of the video. So if you need to know anything or have anything specific about these 2 units, drop me a line and let me know. As always, I answer all my questions that are viable questions. I do get some that are pretty stupid, that which I love because they're funnier and shit. I love the stupid questions. And I even answer those most of the time, unless it's just somebody says, you know, they just want to, you know, take a screwdriver and stick it in my ear. Obviously, there's nothing to answer to that because, you know, personally, I probably would not enjoy that much. But on that note, part 2 will be coming out shortly after this one. I will get this one up and rocking and rolling, and then look for part 2 to come flying to a store near you very soon, or a theater near you very soon, is what I actually should have said. Until then, no matter what instrument you are playing, Practice, practice, practice. Play it to the best of your ability. And remember, rock your ass off, because the harder you rock, the more fun you have. And that's why we're doing this review, because these two damn units make your ass want to rock. Till the next video, rock on.